The PorscheSport Podcast. Porsche Mobile One Super Cup, Formula E, the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship, 24-Hour Series, Porsche Carrera Cup, Endurance Motorsports, British GT, Porsche Club Great Britain, Sim Racing. For more information, visit www.PorscheSport.com. PorscheSport Podcast.
Hello race fans, Peter Mackay here, welcoming you to the PorscheSport Podcast, the show about all things Porsche in motorsport. Today is our big Le Mans preview, and I'm delighted to say that I am joined here in sound and vision this time, which I've just remembered, hence I've now just looked up at the camera. I'm joined in sound and vision here by my colleagues Luke Holroyd and Kat Impey. Now, folks, this is, forget Christmas, this is the big week. This is Le Mans week. We'll start with you, Luke. How are you feeling heading into Le Mans week?
Yeah, shame not going. What is it, Wednesday? We'd normally be kind of probably on the beers by now. On the beers, doing a bit of press work, but we're stuck in stuck in the office back in the UK. But yeah, really looking forward to it. I've just looked at the weather. I'm sure we'll talk about that during the podcast. It looks like it could be a bit of a mix-up for the weather, which makes it interesting. A little bit different this year with the whole COVID delaying the race, and we're a little bit later in the year, which brings a whole host of varieties to the race. But yeah, looking forward to it. I think every sport kind of has its pinnacle event or date, and I think motorsport is definitely Le Mans.
Yeah, it doesn't get any better than Le Mans. And Kat, you were down at your usual joint at Silverstone yesterday, and you bumped into a pretty significant chap in Porsche Le Mans history. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so he's a colleague actually at work, so at the Experience Centre for Porsche at Silverstone. So Richard Atwood. So it's a 50-year anniversary this year since Richard won Le Mans for Porsche and their first victory at Le Mans as well. So he's been a busy man, doing lots of interviews and running around, and he's meant to be there, of course, like many other people, but with COVID going on, sadly, unfortunately, he's not been able to go. So he, like the rest of us, is going to be stuck watching it from home, which I think for him is probably the first time in a long time, because he's normally invited by Porsche, if not Audi. He's always there. So yeah, he's very excited about it. And also it's a bit different this year, start doing it this time of year. And I think everybody's a little bit more excited, I suppose, again, after the year we've all been through, to still have Le Mans and have it at this point. I think he's very excited. I'm very excited. I think, can't wait really for tomorrow to come and practice to start and see what unravels.
Yeah, I think it's going to be very, very interesting indeed, because obviously Le Mans is the kind of amalgamation of three championships. You have entrants who are regulars in the European Le Mans series. You have regulars who race in America in the IMSA WeatherTech Championship, although there's less of them this year for obvious reasons. And then, of course, there's the regular World Endurance Championship entries. And, you know, there's little bits and pieces that you can sort of gather from that. But when Le Mans comes, you can almost wipe the slate clean, can't you? It's just that everybody holds that little bit in their back pocket, and sometimes a very big bit in their back pocket for Le Mans, because, you know, Le Mans is one of those races where normally races trump championships, but with Le Mans it's the other way around, isn't it? You know, you're always going to remember more who won Le Mans in a certain year rather than who won the particular championship. And for any driver, it's especially a sports car regular drivers, it's as good as it gets. Now for Porsche this year, it's a very different look. We've only got two pro cars, so why don't we start with those two guys? We've got car 91 and car 92. Car 91, Lawrence Vantor, Kevin Estre, and Michael Christensen, who won the race back in 2018 with the Pink Pig 911 RSR, but it's a new version of the car this year. Kat, start with you. Out of the two Porsche cars, who you think is going to be the car to look for between the two pro cars?
Good kind of question. It's really hard to say, but probably the 92 car. I think this time, I think it'll be very close. Porsche, obviously, every driver in that seat is capable of winning. They know what they're doing. They know what drivers they have a huge kind of resource, I suppose, of drivers. So the guys that are in it for Le Mans are, the cream of the crop. So I think it'll be very close. But yeah, for whatever reason, my gut kind of says, 92 car probably. But hey, I could be wrong. Hey, it might not even be a Porsche, but I'm hoping it's going to be a Porsche, obviously. But there's a lot of competition in the GTE Pro. Well, actually, to be honest, that's for me where the race is always at, the GTE Pro and the AM and the LMP2, really, because the LMP1 now has changed a little bit, hasn't it? There's, 5 cars in it? Is that right? 5 this year? Something like that.
Yeah, there might. There might be, but there's 2. It's really a 2-car race, isn't it? Yeah.
So the GTE Pro kind of is, and AM is really where it's at. So but no, I who knows, honestly. I think with a 24-hour race, it's, anything can literally happen, because of course it's not just about outright pace. That's only one part of it, isn't it? You've got to show your maturity and keep your nose clean as well. But also over the years, it very much has become kind of a 24-hour sprint, really. You don't really see them holding back and managing tires or fuel, or like you do in Formula One and things, which is only 2 hours. It very much is a sprint to the end. So they have to push incredibly hard, which of course the risk of that is mechanical failures and things happening. But it's such a difficult one to predict, honestly. But yeah, I hope Porsche can do it.
Fingers crossed. I mean, certainly in the they've got the right spread. I mean, in the number 92 car, obviously Kevin Estre incredibly fast, particularly in wet conditions as well. But in the 91 car, they've got a lot of it. You talked about experience, Kat. Jimmy Bruni, the Italian, he's raced with Ferrari before and won with Ferrari before. Frederick Makovecki, who's had a very good season so far in IMSA. But I don't know, looking at Richard Lietz, the Austrian driver, because he's actually the driver who's won the most Le Mans races with Porsche. He's won 3, current driver he's won 3 times at the wheel of a Porsche. So I think he's going to be a key part in that 91 car. We mentioned the weather. Luke, you've been keeping a keen eye on the weather forecast. It looks like we're going to have a wet Le Mans this year, which could play a bit of a factor.
I mean, if you go by the BBC, which are always correct, but it's saying thundery showers and strong to light winds for both Saturday and Sunday, starting from 8 a.m. in the morning. So we knew there were a high chance of that with the kind of delayed start end of the year. Obviously, the weather plays a part. You can have less daylight running, which was always going to be a factor. And yeah, going back to the 91 and 92, we've seen how much Kevin Estre performs in the wet. He seems to outperform everyone. But that being said, you said the 91 car, Frederick Makovecki, he's done a lot in IMSA this year. I think they'll challenge, but I just feel with the wet weather, should it stay how it is, Kevin Estre, Vantor, Michael Christiansen probably stand a very good chance. And as Kat said, it's not just going to be Porsche. There's 4 Ferraris and 2 Aston Martins, 2 British Aston Martins, both running. And yeah, with the PorscheSport podcast, and we're gonna cheer on Porsche, but it's going to be a challenge. Them Aston Martins, I think, will do quite well as well. But I feel with Porsche always do brilliant at Le Mans, even with the bad luck we've had at IMSA this year. Obviously, they haven't brought the IMSA cars over, but there's the drivers there, and as well, I think with Porsche, with so much history this year included, with the 50 years on from the first win, they always seem to have something at Le Mans that they're celebrating, or an event, and they're very good at that with the amount of history they've got, which I think adds another element to everybody, the whole team, the drivers, the fans usually that are there, just to kind of edge them on that little bit more. They've got something else to fight for as well as the win, something to put their name against another mark in the history book. So I think they'll do well. I think if you watch the endurance documentary, which is free to watch on YouTube, that very much goes into detail about the Le Mans and the Spa 24-hour and how the team perform. And they're a German team at the end of the day. They want to win. They're all they're very keen to be the best, and between the two teams as well, they're battling hard. But yeah, I think if I was a betting man, I'd probably go for the 92 just for Kevin in the wet. If the rain comes, I think Kevin Estre will be flying.
Yeah, and of course, newly a new father as well with his lovely wife Caroline. They've had Tommy Estre, so I wonder if he'll be getting. He's very young, so I don't know if he'll be getting his first Le Mans just this time, but maybe next year I'll have Caroline take him up. And he's just taken delivery of a new company car. Interestingly, he had a Kevin Estre. I'm not a stalker, honestly. This is what Instagram tells you. He had a Cayenne Turbo S hybrid, and then he had a little child, and then swapped that in and got a Turbo S 911. Oh, that's the opposite of what you would think that people would normally do. But well played to him. He's not giving in to the stereotype of the new father buying an SUV. I like that. That's good. But you mentioned the Aston Martins, Luke. I think that's where the biggest threat's going to come from in GT Pro, is because for a couple of reasons. I mean, this is now the third year with the new Vantage, which is the first year was a complete disaster for Aston Martin, because often with the balance of performance regulations where, different, obviously a Ferrari, the Ferrari 488, the Porsche 911, the Aston Martin, and when we previously had the BMW and the Ford, they're 5 incredibly different cars, and trying to balance them all together is difficult. So when the car is brand new, the ACO have never really seemed to get it right with new cars, and they always go very much on the side of safety, and the new cars kind of look a bit silly often. We saw that with the C8 Corvette when it went to COTA this year with the World Endurance Championship, and it was nowhere. But last year, Aston Martin put it on pole and then got hit with a really bad balance of performance on Saturday night, and that put them out of contention in the race. I think that after those two experiences, I think Aston Martin will have their tools well and truly sharpened. And the driver lineup, I mean, I don't think I've seen them come together with. I mean, they've always got a good driver lineup, but this year is particularly good, and especially their third drivers. Obviously, they've got Alex Lynn and Maxime Martin in the 97 car, and Nicky Thiem and Marco Sorensen, the Dane train, in the 95 car, both really strong pairings. But the third drivers, Nicky Thiem and Marco Sorensen, have Richard Westbrook with them, and Alex Lynn and Maxime Martin have Harry Tincknell. And to be honest, for third drivers, they've literally, to me, they've gone to pretty much the top of the list of who's available. So I think in terms of, there is absolutely no weak links in the Aston Martin driver lineup. Neither is there in the Porsche lineup, for that matter. But I think Aston Martin are going to be a big threat. Ferrari, you just never know. You never know, I think. We've got 4 Ferraris. We've got 2 privately entered Ferraris and 2 sort of semi-factory Ferraris. Ferrari got very strong lineup. But that car's, how long's that car been around for now, the 488? Is it 4 years or 5? It's
yeah, good point. I don't think it's been 5 years.
Was it the same year the Ford came along that they came with a new one?
So so I can't.
Right into us in the YouTube comments, folks. That's the best one to tell us.
4 years.
It's been around a while. Let's just say a while. That's a good all covering term. Less than obviously this is the first Le Mans for the 911 RSR 19. Now, thanks to one of our loyal listeners, Teddy Framheim in California, and we have a Californian listener, and he wrote to me after last week's episode and said the new 911 RSR is not turbocharged. So I've been saying it's been turbocharged nearly every week for the last 6 months, I think. And it's not turbocharged. It's still normally aspirated, but it's got a larger capacity engine. It's a 4.2 litre with side exit exhaust. It's been very successful in the World Endurance Championship. It was there. It won in the first time out at Silverstone in September last year. I was actually there at that race, and it was really, really impressive. And it's only been off the podium once in the World Endurance Championship, but hasn't won in IMSA at all. And we were talking before the air about, that. So in the fact that the 2 IMSA cars aren't going, and it's just the 2 World Endurance Championship cars, I think, in the GT Pro class, I think Porsche are looking pretty good. And Luke, you mentioned the stats, the heritage of Porsche at Le Mans. They have 19 outright wins, 108 class wins at Le Mans, 69 years in a row, and of those 69 years, 55 of them they've won at least one class. It's such a big part of their heritage. But also one thing that's been a big part of the heritage of Porsche has been customer racing, and that obviously is relevant to the GTE AM class, where teams bring along Pro-Am efforts, and that class this year is absolutely massive. They've got 12 Ferraris in the GTE AM class, only 2 Aston Martins, and then all the rest are the 911 RSR. And of course, this is the last dance for the old 911 RSR 17, one of the most beautiful sounding racing cars ever. Kat, who have you got your eye on in this particular class in GTE AM? What names are popping out to you in that lot?
I mean, I'd like to see how Larry ten Voorde does, actually. Because, of course, he's new to Le Mans. He's doing his debut. He's had a great year. I think his confidence will be incredibly high. Obviously, it's a very different experience. So doing an endurance championship to doing a sprint. But I'm really sort of naturally rooting for him coming in and knowing how good he is. For the team Project One, I think that is where my heart's at. But like you said, there are so many in that class. It seems to be. I mean, I was quite surprised looking through the entrance list and how big the category is for the AMS. Seems to be incredibly popular. And of course, quite often you've got 2 pros and then an amateur. There's a few drivers I know in it, actually. It's a really hard one again for me to say, because I know how good these drivers are and how competitive it is. There is a part of me that will go against Porsche and root for the female team in the Ferrari. Naturally, just a little.
Me too.
But that said, no, I think for me, it's probably the car with Larry ten Voorde in which I'm most interested in seeing, just because he's new to it. Mind you, I don't know about Felipe Fraga. Has he done Le Mans before? Or is this
that's I've got a big blue circle around that car, because that's my pick. Because last year that team is the Wins team, led by Ben Keating, who, in my opinion, is probably the best bronze-rated driver in the world right now. He was at Daytona this year. He was incredibly impressive. Jumped from an LMP2 car where he was on the same pace as the gold standard drivers, and then jumped into an AMG GT3 car and was right on the pace in that, and quite amazing. So he's sharing with Jeroen Bleekemolen, the Dutchman who's won at Le Mans before, triple Porsche Super Cup champion in the past as well. And so Ben, Jeroen and Felipe Fraga won on the road last year in the GTE class. They won in the Ford GT, so it's the one and only time a Ford GT has ever been competed with privately. So it was all the Chip Ganassi Ford factory cars were retired, and then Ben Keating bought the first car privately to race with, took it to Le Mans in the beautiful Wins livery. I actually have a pair of socks that are in the commemorative livery of the of that, and they won on the road, and their pace was fantastic, and they had a really interesting strategy last year, because of course in the Pro-Am class you've got some huge names like pro drivers like Matt Campbell, Jeroen Bleekemolen, Jan Magnussen. Who else do we have? We've got Johnny Adam, Augusto Farfus. So there's a lot of huge names, but then there's a lot of amateur drivers as well. And in each car, you've got to have one amateur, you've got to have one bronze driver, and then one silver, and then the other can be gold or platinum. And the strategy they played last time was that they basically put Jeroen and Felipe Fraga, the 2 pros, in for pretty much to get their drive time almost completely done and basically break the back of the field. And then they put Ben in at the end to do his minimum drive time. And he did the majority of the last part of the race, and it worked. But they actually were disqualified they were refueling a couple of tenths too quick per stop. And they also had their fuel tank I think it was something like 400 milliliters too big. And they got disqualified from the whole race. Yeah, so that car, Ben had planned to race on with the car, but then I think they were kind of maybe a little bit, I don't know, embarrassed or anyway, not happy in one way or another, and it's now sitting in his office, this Ford GT, with all the bugs all over the front of it and stuff. So yeah, Felipe Fraga is kind of he's part of their trio that they race together, and I think Felipe's incredibly quick. Jeroen is obviously. Say again, sorry, Kat.
He came from Formula 2, did he? And then go over.
I think he is ex-single seaters. Yes, he's Brazilian. Yeah, he does Brazilian touring cars as well, which is quite competitive. And Jeroen has driven everything and anything. Obviously, won with in the LMP2 class with the RS Spider for Porsche in 2008. But that's who I've got my eye on. The other car, but the biggest threat I think to Porsche is. And actually, ironically, there's a guy in that car that Porsche have got their eye on at the moment, so I understand, is Max Root, a young American chap who he's racing with Richard Heistand and Jan Magnussen in a Ferrari, and I think that is an incredibly strong pairing, because Max Root is actually still rated a silver driver, but he's not.
He's done some. He's done some racing in a Porsche with Patrick Long, I believe, as well. For
That's
Motorsport,
right. Yes, he did it at Daytona this year. Yeah, and he's been dominating. He's basically the paid professional in a Pro-Am effort in World Challenge as well. So he's really quick. I think he's only silver by way of his age. I think he's only 17 or 18, but races in the GT3 Challenge America, or their equivalent of our Carrera Cup. So he's no slouch. He's probably the fastest silver in the field. Jan Magnussen, well, he's won it countless times with an incredible marque like Corvette, who have just got such a rich history in this amazing race as well. And then Richard Heistand, who again is a very fast American bronze driver. So, but you've got just the sheer numbers in GT&M. There's something like 22 cars. So it's that's the biggest it's ever been. And I think it actually shows you a lot to me. I don't know what you guys think, but it shows to me that we've got six pro cars, 8 pro cars, and one of them's effectively a Pro-Am effort anyway. But there are very few all pro cars. It's the amount of Pro-Am cars that there are now shows you, I think, the way that the business model of sports car racing is going. That for it to survive long term, Pro-Am is kind of you do need someone bringing a significant budget along. Would you say so, Kat?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we know how expensive the sport is, and for any manufacturer to put and commit into, Le Mans or WEC or whatever their efforts are, it's a huge amount of money. And of course, it's important to them, and it's very important to their image. And they learn a lot from motorsport and pass that down into the road cars, of course, as well. So they'll always invest in it. But when they're investing in other things as well, like Formula E and other stuff, it's very expensive. So, yeah, I think more than ever to see so many classes, but more entrance in GTE-AM than any of the other classes kind of just shows to me the way it's going. And I think, like you said, you need a wealthy gentleman driver, really, who can at least bring some money in and part fund, if not fully fund it for the others as well. So it's always been there, but it more than ever now it's going that way. And I think because there's a lot of rounds, aren't there? I think over the years the cars have become more technical. You need more people to run it. There are more rounds, and I just think so financially for a manufacturer that just puts the price up and up and up and up, and it gets to a point where if you're going to invest in more than one thing as well, then yeah, if you can have other teams running your cars for you as well and have them also sort of waving the Porsche flag in this case, then it's still good for them and their image, but it does show kind of where it's going. And I think for pro drivers, there's a lot of pro drivers that do that they'll go and race with a gentleman driver because it's their way of getting in a seat, because there aren't actually that many seats in the grand scheme of things for pro drivers. And there's a lot of pro drivers out there, and that's actually where it would work. Actually, almost being a silver license holder, there might even be more opportunities, bizarrely, than being a gold or platinum. Because in some respects, if you're a really fast silver, you've probably got less competition than if you're a gold or platinum. So, so it's certainly going that way. It certainly seems to be right now. And I think it will continue like that in the future, with how much it costs. And but no, Porsche and a lot of the manufacturers will still invest a huge amount into it, because it's such a big part of their image. And you were talking about the heritage and success of Porsche, how much they've done over the years, and they'll never want to lose that. They'll always have that.
No, you're right. And I mean, if you look at of their 19 outright victories, the majority of those were obviously fully fledged factory efforts, as they have to be often. But 108 class wins, I think that tells far more of a story about the long-term heritage of Porsche. I think when people buy I actually wrote an article about this recently, where people buy reason someone would buy a Porsche over, say, a Lamborghini or a Bentley or something maybe a little bit more, or an Aston Martin maybe. They buy a Porsche because they know it's going to be durable, because Porsches typically last longer than their premium mark rivals, and they've been absolutely committed to motorsport since day one, and a lot of their cars have been built with one eye on being taken onto the racetrack and one eye on the road, and that's always been the case, even nowadays. But but you need customers to buy the cars, and I think that's something that's Porsche have kind of been ahead of the game there, and I think they're well set up. I can't imagine what the turnover is of the Porsche parts truck at Le Mans. It must be a lot. If you've got to buy a new gearbox, or if you've got to buy a new a set of brake pads or something, I can't imagine what that's like. But they've got to walk over to the Porsche truck and buy it, don't they? It's the model it definitely works. And clearly, I mean, here we are in the middle of a global pandemic and financial meltdown and whatever else you want to call it, and we've got 22 cars with multi-million-pound projects for one race. So clearly there's people want to be there, and the crazy thing is there's a huge queue of people who would be there if they were able to travel. That's the crazy part. It makes you wonder what this entry list would look like without it. So I think it's really cool. I mean, speaking of the kind of pro-am idea as well, that's also seen in the LMP2 category, which of course LMP2 category, prototype racing cars built by technology firms like Orica, Dallara, etc., and then they all work with the same Gibson engine. But so it's not really relevant to Porsche as a manufacturer. However, there is a little bit of, we talked about this last time on the show. There's Nick Tandy, who of course won for Porsche outright back in 2015. He's actually in the LMP2 class for G-Drive racing alongside Ollie Jarvis, and for Nick Tandy, he's a fully paid Porsche employee. What do you reckon? To me, that tells a big story that Porsche are letting him away to do that, to go and drive a prototype car rather than putting him with one of the Porsche customer cars, of which there are many. That seems to me that they're looking ahead to a return to prototype. Am I putting two together and making eight, or what do you think?
Well, I hope not. I hope you're right. They're very, very savvy, and they always do their homework. So yes, I would imagine there's a lot more to it, because it's unusual to let one of their pro drivers like that onto, when you were just saying with the Le Mans 24 hour and how big it is, so for somebody like Nick Tandy not to be in a Porsche at Le Mans almost seems mad, because he's so good and he's so committed to the job and consistent with what he delivers. So I would certainly say there is more to it. We could be wrong, but it just, with Porsche and the way they work, they're very good at doing their homework, and I would imagine they've put him in to see how he does, what he picks up, what he learns. And then he'll come back with all of that feedback, and that will give them a head start with another project. I assume we could be far off here, but it does seem a little odd. The only other way I can think of it is if he's sort of got potential to be with another manufacturer, and they're trying to keep him happy by letting him do other things as well. But I can't see, with such a big event like this, to not actually be representing Porsche directly. I think there's probably more to it, because I think they'll want him in an LMP2 car or LMP1 car in the future. So yeah, I'm sure they'll come back. They won't hopefully stay away for long. In that sense, I think they've focused all their efforts on the RSR, which has been the right thing to do after having success in the LMP1 category. But yeah, let's hope it's something exciting for the future for us.
I think it should be an interest. The new outright top class prototype rules are going to be very, very. The chassis is going to be incredibly close to a current day LMP2 car, basically, but with the powertrain will be open to the manufacturer with a spec hybrid system is apparently the kind of basic recipe at this stage that they announced at Daytona. So I think it'll be a lot of learnings all around there because I believe that Lawrence Vantor is trying very hard to get himself in a DPI car in the prototype for IMSA next year, with Porsche not racing in IMSA next year. So that also tells a bit of a story, I think, for me. Now, of course, Le Mans is, if you're a racing fan, everybody knows Le Mans, and I don't think you could say you're a racing fan without having a particular memory of Le Mans. Luke, probably my question to you is: do you ever remember going to Le Mans, or is it just a frothy haze? Tell us, is there a particular memory that stands out over the years for you about Le Mans?
There's a couple. I think the early days, I remember a lot better. So I was younger, so I couldn't drink or drink much. I think when did I first? I think I was 12 when my dad first took me, and that was like the benefit of obviously growing up kind of with my dad doing stuff with PorscheSport, and some years we'd go as press, some years we'd go as fans, and after a few years of doing that, I thought it was a little bit cooler, and I'd just go with my friends and knock the press side on the head for a little bit, which obviously I went back to very quick when you realise the advantage of being able to like stand in the pits and take pictures and just watch what's going on. But thanks to that as well, some of the teams used to work with. Peterson White Lightning is one for me that stood out, who, as a privateer team, one of the most successful ones for Porsche, running at Le Mans. The years we went, they won Le Mans twice on the trot, and probably should have won it the third year. They came second, and obviously Peterson White Lightning was Dale White and Mike Peterson, who formed the team, and they did brilliantly as well. And every time we went, they looked after us, and like my early memories has kind of been in the pits with them and just fascinated as a young kid watching them from the back of the garage. And you've got the likes of Jörg Bergmeister and Patrick Long, who drove for them at the time, and they went on to bigger things as well. But that was probably my early memory. And there's a guy called Tom Moore, who's he's head of communications and media for Porsche USA now, and we still keep in touch. And funny how we've ended up going down the same route and doing almost the similar job. He's obviously working for Porsche. I get to work for an independent. But that was probably my serious memories. And then when I went to university and we did some motorsport stuff, we kept on going across in different types. I've been in all sorts of cars, Porsches, Nissan Skylines. We went in a Volkswagen LT one year, which I think did about 20 mile an hour up any sort of hill. It took us like 2 days to get to Le Mans. But fully, in fact, that year my dad went in a Porsche Boxster S, big yellow hairdresser car, as people call it. And I remember when we got to Le Mans, it kind of passed us on the way, had the weekend, watched the race. And then on the Monday, so everyone goes in convoy. For anyone who's done it before, you kind of all go off together and get on the ferry. And I think on the way there, he was a little bit annoyed of how slow we'd gone. So he actually said to us, "Oh, I'm going to leave half a day later than you guys. I'll catch you up probably as we come into Calais." Mm-hmm. And I remember boarding the ferry and couldn't get hold of him, ringing him, no answer. Got back, got to Dover and rang him, and he got 3 miles out of Le Mans and the radiator had blown on the Boxster, which is not good for Porsche, but. I remember he ended up he spent a week in Le Mans and trying to get a radiator to repair it. He couldn't get one in France, and I actually ended up having to buy one in the UK and ship it UPS to France with a load of instructions. Obviously that time he didn't really have YouTube as much, so instructions on how to change it, and he spent a few days in a campsite with no one else there at this point. I did mention, I was like, you should just go down to the garages. There'll be some pit crews still there that might help you out. yeah, quite funny that we went in an old Volkswagen van and made it back a week earlier than my dad did in a Porsche. But yeah, it's I said it at the start. It's just one of them races. For me, it's like the pinnacle of motorsport. Whether you go as if you're working there in press or if you're a fan. I just remember sat on Tech Rouge, and most people take a sleeping bag, sit there with some beers and fall asleep as the cars are coming past. And it always surprised me how much you could actually fall asleep next to the track. Apart from, and you'll both of you'll like this, when the Corvettes came past. So you could, the rest of the noise, it was kind of the same sort of engines, and then you'd hear the two Corvettes come past, and it'd wake you sleep up, and then you'd get another 3 minutes before they came round again.
Sign of a proper race car, Luke. Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
But apart from this year, I've been nearly every year since I was 13, and I'd recommend it to anyone, even if you're not that big of a motorsport fan, just for the event itself. Mm-hmm. The few days before the race outside of the track, it's brilliant, and yeah, I'm a big fan.
Kat, how about you?
I can't think of a specific memory because I've been quite a few times, not as much as Luke, I don't think, but quite a few times that it all kind of merges a little bit. I can't remember everything that. Well, definitely some of them I was definitely younger. No, I think for me, honestly, a few things, even before actually getting to the actual race, but going to the campsite and staying there and just seeing hordes of people that were just in such a good spirit and having fun, and people drinking, but no kind of aggression. Everything was just felt lovely and friendly and safe. And the locals had created like a little drag strip outside of one of the campsites. So obviously a lot of people, as Luke was saying, come in groups. So you've also got groups of lovely exotic cars, bikes and all sorts. So people starting to do their own sort of, make believe races with all sorts of stuff, which is kind of funny to watch, especially at a young age. I mean, when I first went, I must have been, I don't know, would I have been 10, something like that. And I'd never seen anything like that. And the police were just letting it happen and just making sure people stood back while it was going on. And yeah, so that was brilliant. That was all before I'd even got to the track. And then at the circuit, I mean, there's so many people there, just that buzz, that atmosphere, and waiting for the race to start, that kind of excitement and energy building up in the crowd and things is really great. And then on the start, just hearing that many cars and variety of cars as well on the grid and starting up. I mean, that was just immense. I remember the first time I saw that, and it kind of made the hairs on the back of my neck like stand on end with excitement, just like how noisy it actually was. It was a real surprise for the first time. Even though I've been to Formula One and seen other things, I just think there's nothing quite like the 24-hour Le Mans, really, with the atmosphere, the different manufacturers, different categories, the type of people that are there. And then, I think a very famous memory of mine is watching and rooting, admittedly, for Corvette, not Porsche at the time, when I was younger, and then just together for the entire race for 24 hours, both cars just following each other around consistently, exactly the same pace the whole time. I remember at night, watching on one of the corners and seeing the brakes just glowing bright red. And I'd never seen that before. And as a kid, couldn't believe how hot it was all getting. Yet it was still going round and round and round at the same pace. I remember that. Just stood there with my dad and, talking about it. And that was one of the moments for me where it confirmed that's something I wanted to do, was go and race at Le Mans and be part of that. It's great being a spectator, but I'd love to be the other side of the fence, really. There's quite a few memories to be honest. I could go on and on and on. I won't bore you, but
not at all.
No, it's definitely one of my favourite events, and like you were both saying, I think for anybody that loves motorsport, it's a very special event. But even if you're not that into motorsport, I think going as a group there is so much to do anyway. Like the last time I went, there were bands, music on, a fair, all sorts of things going on. So for families or groups of people just wanting to have a nice time, I think the motorsport is one element of that, really. So yeah, it's just a mega event, and also it's good value for money if you compare it to Formula One or Goodwood or other events. You know, it's actually it's not that expensive to go and do, really, and it's just such a great weekend. So it's just such a shame that we can't all be there, really.
I think we should have a disclaimer actually on the. If anyone's not been before and you do take a nice car, you was mentioning the kind of the burnouts. I think they call it the Mad Friday, the Friday before the race. And for anyone who's not been, there's practically just one road in and out of Le Mans. You really, and that's where everybody camps. And if you take a nice, in fact, it doesn't have to be a nice car. And I think even the police will do burnouts, and they will not let any car past until you've done some sort of burnout. So don't take a fresh set of Michelins if you're planning to go. As we learnt the hard way the first year. But yeah.
I love that the police say you're not going past until you do a burnout. I love that. Yeah. That's brilliant. I tell you what, we'll go on PorscheSport on tour, and at that point I'll get out and be like, Kat, you drive. I have no idea how to do a burnout. I have to say, I'm listening to you guys recounting this story, and all I'm thinking is, I cannot believe I've not been yet. It's I went to Daytona for the first time this year, and that was the best motorsport experience I've had. But I'm sure Le Mans another level again.
I didn't realise you'd never been to Le Mans.
No. It's a sore one, but.
Oh, you love motorsport and sports cars. How have you not been on? That seems absolutely insane.
I know.
We'll start the crowdfunding now. We'll add a link.
Yeah. Get Peter to Le Mans. Yeah. So, Well, it's definitely next year. It was supposed to be this year, but next year we'll be there hopefully. But
I think next year will be unbelievable as well.
It'll be mega, yeah.
A few of my friends and people who are fans of PorscheSport have mentioned they'd not been before, and there was on about going this year. Obviously, before they kind of cancelled it all, because they were going to allow 50,000, I think, to attend. And I told them to wait. I was like, if you're going to go, you want to experience the weather. Touch wood, the weather should be a lot nicer in June next year, and also just the full experience of driving there with. All the British fans that drive over and all the supercars. It's brilliant.
Yeah, it's one. I mean, my dream my dream is to be a live broadcast commentator on the TV, and when I think about it, and when I actually my Le Mans memory is actually very recent. My favourite Le Mans memory, there's many, but probably my earliest memory of Le Mans, probably the Harrods McLaren with Derek Bell and Andy Wallace and Justin Bell. But actually, my favourite Le Mans memory is last year watching it on TV, because that was around the time when I finally said, sod this, I'm going to chase this dream for good. I've talked about it long enough. I'm going to go for it. And when I think about being a pro commentator, for whatever reason, it's just Le Mans that pops into my head. Obviously there's loads of others, but it's always, for whatever reason, it's whenever you think about that dream ahead, you visualize that dream ahead, it's standing there with a microphone at Le Mans. And last year we were at I don't know if you guys have had this before, when if like you're in a group of friends and most people will be like, oh, we'll get the rugby on and we'll get the football on and we'll get the cricket on. They're all socially acceptable. If you say put Le Mans on, people go, what's that? Like, what's that? Oh, I don't know. Is that Formula One? No, it's not. Bloody Formula One. And we were at a birthday party down in London, and very kindly I spoke very nicely to the host to see if I could have Le Mans on in the corner in the background on mute, just so I could watch it. And watching it, all the cars going around, the last year the Corvette C7, of course the Wins 4GT, and all that sort of stuff. And that was when it was just like that. Watching most of the race, that's probably the most of any Le Mans I've watched flat out. Probably watched 18 or 19 hours of it all in all. But it was, that was when for me, it was like, and I think that's the sort of thing that Le Mans. It's interesting you said that, Kat, about for you when you were there trackside. You're like, this is what I want to be in that seat driving that car.
Absolutely, yeah. I think because of the whole atmosphere it brings, and there isn't in the motorsport world, I don't think there's anything quite like Le Mans, and that's why even we see F1 as the pinnacle of the sport, but how many F1 drivers want to go and do Le Mans and have that on their CV? It's something that I think every driver wishes to do, and I can absolutely get it from a commentator side as well. To have to be there, not just for the 24 hours, but before that as well, and just the energy and excitement. I can see the absolute appeal. I'm sure you'll be able to do it as well. Maybe with PorscheSport, you don't know.
I'll be like, and here's Kat Impey coming up through the Mulsanne, down to Mulsanne corner in the Corvette, down the gears she goes.
I think you mentioned like memorable moments as well, and for me, just in terms of like the corners, the Porsche curves. Interestingly, you hear the drivers speak about it as well. For anyone who doesn't know Le Mans, obviously it's a very big circuit, and there's most of the track is actually the fans can't spectate on, so there's only kind of like the main straight, the start of the Porsche curves, and up to Tete Rouge where you can kind of spectate, and then the rest of it is complete darkness. During the night, it's only the headlights that are lighting up most of the track, and the drivers mentioned kind of as they're coming down to Arnage and then towards Porsche curves, to start to see the big Ferris wheel that's there every year, and the campfires, and they start smelling the barbecues, and kind of brings that human element and almost that kind of connection of fans and the driver, which is Le Mans always kind of shouts about. And the Porsche curves itself, I was speaking off air to you, Peter, earlier about Jörg Bergmeister's done an interview, which is on the PorscheSport website, about how they set the car up, and with Le Mans being so heavily on the straights, and they want that kind of little downforce, but actually want the maximum downforce in the Porsche curves, which they don't have because they're putting everything into the straight line speed, and we've done it on the sim, Peter, and the Porsche curves in an RSR, and it's pretty scary in a setup that we've kind of put there to kind of save ourselves from going into the barrier. And not only that, them flying through the Porsche curves, and then they've got an LMP2 or an LMP1 coming on the outside, and I don't believe for a second that they've got a chance to even look in the mirrors. They're just relying on staying on the racing line, and hopefully that Porsche curve, that car gets through on the Porsche curves, because there's no room for error. If you get tapped or go wide, you're into the wall, and we've seen it a few times. It can be deadly out there. But what a brilliant part of the circuit, the Porsche curves.
Well, it's often where the problems are, isn't it? With the collisions with lap traffic, is the Porsche curves, and it's. I can also imagine in the braking at Le Mans must be very tricky with having that low downforce, not having that force in the braking as well. Have you ever, talking about Jörg Bergmeister, have you ever heard Pat Long's impression of Jörg Bergmeister?
No, but I'm sure you can give a good.
It's like, yes, the car is a bit snaky in the braking.
I think with the Porsche curves as well, with it, I mean, it's not a long part of this, but it's a fair few corners, and you mentioned the braking. A lot of the LMP cars can become, they'll try and jump at the first braking zone just so they're ahead, because sometimes you can get stuck behind a GT car and you kind of stuck for the whole selection of curves, so they can become a little bit impatient, and that is where some of the accidents happen. But we often camp on the Porsche curves, and what a brilliant place to stand and watch them going around.
Kat, you've driven single seater cars, aerodynamics in them. What's it like when you have to trim it right back for a fast circuit, and then there is a part where you're going around a pretty fast corner, low downforce? What's the sensation like? Scary.
Yeah, I think it's because I mean, aero's quite a scary thing anyway when you first experience it, because I remember very well when I first tested an F3 car. And going through, I was just testing at the local track, Silverstone at the time, and going through a Copse Corner, which is a flat turn. And I wasn't quite taking it flat, and it was very unstable. and the team said, well, you need to go 10 k's quicker. You must keep your foot, you've got to go flat. And when you're thinking in your head, well, I can't, it's fairly blind, I can't see, and you're telling me it's flat, but it's already unstable. Well, sure, it's going to get more unstable. Of course, once you've done it and you realise, wow, okay, the car now feels really stuck to the road and glued down, you realise, okay, and then your confidence grows. But of course, then if you're then trimming that back again, because it's a high-speed track, but then you do also have high-speed corners, it's a balancing act of still having enough aero, having enough traction, but of course, not slowing down and getting too much drag on the straights as well. So it's a real kind of delicate one, and you will get quite a bit of movement. And the biggest problem is if there's too much movement with the aero cars, they just snap and go, because it's like a more cliff edge with a drop of grip. But once you've really tuned into a car, like these guys will have, and you feel really at one with the car and the track, you can't really beat it. There's nothing quite like that sensation of driving a car with slicks and wings and high speed. I don't even know how to describe it, to be honest. It's absolutely awesome. And some of these LMP cars have a crazy amount of aero on the you watch things like the Toyotas on board, and it looks like it's being set up when you're watching the onboard. You think, how is it doing that? And it makes things like the Ferraris and the RSR and things look slow, and we know they're not slow.
No. It's funny, as soon as you're saying how to explain it, as soon as you started talking about slicks and wings, your grin just grew. I reckon it's a typical racing driver, but it's funny. I remember when I spoke to I interviewed Catherine Legg at Daytona, and she was telling us about trying to qualify a car that really shouldn't be qualifying for the Indy 500. And she was like, you're trimming more and more out of it, taking more and more downforce off, and it's getting more and more unsettled. But so getting the car in the show is getting more and more. She says, see that the guys, if you're in a Penske or a Ganassi car with good aerodynamics or whatever, it's or good mechanical as well, it's not easy is not the word, but it's more comfortable. She says the guys that getting in on the bubble for the Indy 500 in the cars that are having to be trimmed out. She says it's. Oof, yeah.
Well, apparently they can take up to a year to build the Indy cars, so that to trim out all the resistance, so polishing the gearbox, drive axles, all that. So the amount of work that goes in. So with Alonso, he this year he crashed his car, and he was quite a bit off the pace after that. And apparently it's because his pro car, his main car, which they spent a year polishing, getting ready for the Indy 500, was destroyed. So they had to put him in another car, which just isn't as quick. Because around there, obviously, it does take technique, of course it does, but it's also about how good your car is. And she's absolutely right. If your car isn't level, and you've got to take more aero off to get those speeds, because I mean, some of the speeds are crazy as an average. 230 mile an hour average, it's like insane. Then that I can imagine is incredibly scary, actually, when really the car's not quite as quick as the some of the front runners, so we're going to have to take more aero off, have less grip to make it.
I cannot imagine. I remember watching the Indy 500 this year, and Scott Dixon, who ended up coming second, and he's doing really well. I mean, he's dominating the championship. He's going around turn one, which is 220 or whatever it is, and he's got obviously the steering wheel's at a kind of angle anyway, because it's just. And then somebody said to me, they're like, "Oh, that's just turning left. That's as simple." I was like, "You are talking utter nonsense." I said, "Just watch this," and then going around the corner, and it is like a full on, and I'm going, "Oh, can you?" It just makes you.
The really hard thing is the car moves on the Indy 500. You're not meant to steer into it because it can bite and fight into the wall. So big thing with the race drivers with the Indy 500 is if it goes, do not steer into it. But you can imagine all these years for drivers, that's the instinct. Try to catch it. If it's going, you must let it go, because it can really pitch and fire you. And I mean, I feel IndyCar is still one of the most purest, kind of scariest forms of motorsport, especially the Indy 500, of course. But fascinating seeing all of that, and And obviously keen interest in Fernando because he's done Le Mans, Formula One, and seeing him do IndyCar as well. But yeah, it was a shame he crashed out of that car, so he was never quite as quick after that in the second car.
It's just one thing has just occurred to me. Now this is time for Peter's tin hat to go on here, because Fernando Alonso has just signed for Renault Formula One team, hasn't he? Which is being rebranded as Alpine next year. But Alpine are also moving up from LMP2 to LMP1 next year. So 2 and 2 together making 15. You never know. We might see Fernando back next year at Le Mans. You never know. My other reason why, one, I'm going to pretend I brought the Indy 500 up for this reason, is we have Juan Pablo Montoya coming this year to race in the LMP2 class with Dragon Speed USA. Now if he wins that class, he's actually on the Triple Crown, because he's won the Monaco Grand Prix, he's won the Indy 500, and so if he's to win the LMP2 class, he will then, not outright, of course, whether you have to be outright, I don't know, but to win the LMP2 class this year, probably even more impressive. To be honest, winning that, I would give much more kudos to who wins the LMP2 class this year than who wins the LMP1, which you normally never say that.
Yeah, well, it's just the LMP2 class. It's such a competitive class, and a huge lineup really. I think that the LMP2 has become the kind of the new LMP1 in a way. Some respects at the moment. I mean, gosh, I would be very excited if Fernando came back and did more. But yeah, I didn't realise that. I suppose maybe it has to be outright to be the Triple Crown, but I suppose, I don't know, if he's won his class, he's still, and like you say, this year especially, with how many are in it, maybe that's it, and then he will have the Triple Crown, which is incredibly hard to get. So I hadn't thought of it that way, but maybe Montoya will do it.
He might do. Now for our listeners and viewers, my Porsche Le Mans pub quiz was vetoed by both of my co-presenters. However, I'm going to spring this one on you. Podium predictions, and you see I've got my pen at the ready. I'm going to make mine too, and then next week we'll see who's closest.
Buying the beers.
Who's buying the beers? Yes, and who's paying for the karting when we go karting. So, Luke, we'll start with you. So, I want
every class. Are we doing every class?
Yeah, I think we've got to do every class, and we can get any of our viewers and listeners. Do let us know as well, and we'll see. There'll be a prize of some description for the winner. Okay, let's start with LMP1 then. Luke, who's your prediction for?
It's between the Toyotas, as long as they don't have any trouble. I think I'm going to go for the number 8 with Buemi and Nakajima and Brendan Hartley for the win. Okay, LMP2 is really tough.
Hold on. So number 8, and then so that will obviously mean then number 7 Toyota in second. Third in LMP1. Who do you call for third there? So it's between the two Rebellions and the Bicolis.
I'm gonna go the Bicolis. So you would normally go Rebellion, but Bruno Spengler in feel like could have a good
Controversial.
Chance. Yeah.
So that could be your downfall, I think. Luke. Kat, who do you reckon?
I think, like you say, it's going to be the Toyotas. I think probably for me, the number 7 car with Kobayashi and Mike Conway. I think they've got some unfinished business, and I think they'll be very, very, eager, I think. So I think for me that I can see them getting it. I mean, that said, like I said, 24 hours, I find it so hard to predict this, and they're all such good drivers that, who really knows? But I probably would say that. And then, of course, hopefully for Toyota, that means then the number 8 car in second. And then, my heart probably still is with a Rebellion car, really, because I've always think they've been so, competitive and well sorted. I think that would be the top 3. I had a guess, massive guess.
which Rebellion? 1 or 3?
You know what? I don't really know. I think they're both strong lineups. I don't know. Let's go 1.
1. the Bruno Senna car.
Yeah, let's go.
A good one, right? I'm gonna agree with your sentiment about Mike Conway because I think him and Kobayashi and Jose Maria Lopez have been a brilliant trio. I think they got quite honestly, I think they got screwed. Was it last year or the year before when they had to change the tire right at the end? It was last year, wasn't it? Yeah, that was a little bit questionable. I thought that was really unlucky, and they've been so close a couple of times. So yeah, I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to go 7. So Luke is the wild card for the win with the number 8 car. Then number 8 second, and then I'm going to go. I can't be the same as Kat, so I'm going to go number 3 Rebellion because Roman Dumas, he's a Porsche man. See, I'm not
You're on
off brand the whole time. Yeah, Roman Dumas in number 3. So okay, so LMP2. This is where it gets a hell of a lot more difficult. Luke, who are your picks in LMP2? This is like throw darts at a board. This one.
Yeah, I think if I'm going to go off consistency and kind of looking at the European Le Mans series, probably between G Drive and United, I'm going to go to stay on brand. The 16 G Drive Algarve with Nick Tandy, Ollie Jarvis, and Ryan Cullen. And then I will go with the Paul de Resta's car, the number 22 United Autosports.
If you want to win, hire a Scotsman.
And then, see, I'm tempted to say the other United Autosports car. I'm just looking at the list, but I'm going to throw another. I'm going to go for the 37 Jackie Chan Racing, just to
see Jackie Chan do the dance at that.
Because you can kind of pick anyone, I think, in that class, and
you can, yeah. Kat, who are your picks for? Who are you going for?
I mean, there's a big part of me that wants to say G Drive with Nick Tandy for kind of the same sort of reasons, rooting for him naturally. But actually, honestly, I think it's probably going to be United Autosport, and I'm going to go with the one that Paul de Resta is in. So what number car he is?
2022. Yeah.
So I think probably I think it will be that car. Then maybe G Drive with Nick Tandy and the team for 2, and then the other United Autosport car after that, I'd a guess. Which is
2 with Alex Blundell.
32.
Who actually have Job Van Hoyt in there, who does some racing for G Drive in the esports field, but he races for United Autosports in the real world, actually.
That's pretty cool.
Strong line. Very difficult.
Okay. For the win, I'm going to go... Oh, this is hard. This is it. Just don't remind me this was my idea. Okay, I'm going to go... For the win, I'm going to go 42 Cool Racing because they got Nico Lapierre. I mean, he's Mr. Orica. Then I'm going to put the United Autosport car in there, 22. And then third, I'm going to do, because I count myself sort of 5% Dutch. I'm going to go for Racing Team Netherlands, number 29, Nick de Vries, Guido van der Garde, and the world's fastest grosser, Fritz van Aert. Number 29, because they've moved up to an Orica this year. They've retired their Dallara, and I think they deserve one as well. So that is very much by heart rather than head pick, but you never know. It could just be one of those days. Right now is where we get interesting now. GTE Pro. Look, who are you calling in GTE Pro?
I think this one's probably the easiest. Well,
you think? Okay.
So I'm going the 92 Porsche Christiansen, Estre and Vantol for the win. The 91 Porsche Premier Elites, and then for third place, I'm going to go the 95 Aston Martin with Sorensen.
Kat?
That's what I was going to say.
There's the other Aston Martin with Harry Tinknell, to be fair, as well, which is.
Now I feel they have to be different. Okay, let's switch the two Porsches round. Let's have if I say the 91 car followed by the 92. No, actually no. Let's change it. Let's do 91 car. Now I'm clearly completely guessing now. And then I think an Aston's gonna definitely be there. So the Aston with let's say with Alex Lynn and that team. I think.
Okay.
And then gosh. Do you think a Ferrari? Do you think they'll make it?
It's raining. No.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah, let's go with the other Porsche then for third.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna go. I am going to go 92. I think with it being wet, Quick Kevin, he's my guy. He's and Lawrence Vantor is so good as well. I think they've probably got the best third driver in the whole field. I think they're going to be fought the whole way by the 95 Aston, Nicky Team, Marco Sorensen, and Richard Westbrook. And I'm going to split the manufacturers. I'm going to put. Do you know? I'm going to put another wild card in there. I'm going to put the Risi Competizione Ferrari in there because it's an old French team: Olivier Pla, Sebastien Bourdais, Jules Gounon, Risi Competizione. Risi are such a cool team as well. For them to be coming and doing that effectively privately, they're effectively a dealer team. So I got a bit of a soft spot for there. They had that beautiful blue North American racing team livery last time as well. Okay, so this is where it gets very interesting again. GTE AM. Where on earth do you go here? Luke, where's your picks in?
We didn't mention them actually in like his kind of GT roundup, but the 77 Dempsey Proton Racing, you've got Christian Reed, Ricardo Pera, and Matt Campbell. Obviously, Matt Campbell, a Porsche kind of factory driver on his way up, and I've watched him at Nürburgring, and he's fantastic. Still really young, Australian lad, but he's done Le Mans a couple of times now, I believe. And Dempsey Proton Racing, probably, as we mentioned, Peterson White Lightning earlier, are probably going to be like one of the leading, or are the leading privateer Porsche team. So, yeah, the 77 Dempsey Proton for first place.
Strong call. Matt Campbell won on his debut with the team.
Yeah, something's not telling me I really want to say Larry Ten Voorde just because I really like him, but for some reason I'm thinking of Dempsey 1-2 with the 88, which is Thomas Prennin, the Formula E driver, and Dominic Bastien. So the 88 for second place. Do I go Porsche 1, 2, 3? There's enough Porsches to do it.
So 77, 88.
Yes,
and your third.
I'm gonna go. I'm not gonna look too biased. I'm gonna go the 98 Aston Martin with Delalana. You know, he's still a gentleman driver, but he's done it for a fair few years now. Augusta Faris, yeah, 98 Aston Martin, third place.
Farfus, he won the Daytona 24 this year, so he's pretty handy, right? Kat, who do you think? You go eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
I know this. I feel like I'm just guessing it, especially now you say it's going to be wet. So I feel like that just makes everything even harder. I think I keep changing my mind constantly. I would say for the win, let's go for the 77 car, Matt Campbell and Christian Reed. Just because they're a very strong lineup. They all have to be fair, but and then I don't know. Let's go with the Let's go with the 57 car. The Team
the
Project
wins
one.
car. Yeah, the wins car.
Let's go with those
With
3 boys.
your own.
And then there's a part of me that feels like I should have say the Ferrari team with the girls in, actually.
They're going in mine.
I might go with that because I've realised I didn't put the other 3 girls in the LMP2, so let's go with that.
It's actually it's such a shame, because I remember when I spoke to Catherine Legg in January, she was so excited about, or it hadn't been announced at that point, but she was so excited to get that opportunity after a whole long career, and she's sitting at home with 2 broken legs. It's horrible, isn't it? It's
gutted for her because she's put. And okay, the 3 girls that are doing it in the LMP2 car, are great, but I just really feel for her because she's at the other end of her career, and has always had this dream to do this, and it just seems like she's not destined to do it somehow. And it's such a shame, but I'm sure she'll be rooting for them. So I hope, fingers crossed, they'll do well.
Hope so. I'm hoping so too. And it wasn't all bad when she got home. Her boyfriend Zach proposed to her as well.
Yeah.
So she got engaged when she got home. So that was nice. That was cool. I chatted a coffee with him. He's a nice guy. Right. My turn now. I'm gonna go for the 57 Project One Porsche of your own Blake Mullen. Also, it's the coolest looking race car in the field, the purple wins livery. So I've got them all written down then. We'll see how right, or probably more likely how catastrophically wrong we all are after the race next week. But that would probably tells a good enough story as any to say just how unpredictable and exciting Le Mans is going to be. Before we finish, guys, what's your plans for watching the race on Saturday and Sunday?
Go on, Kat.
My plans to be on. I'm just going to low-key one at home and try and stay up most of the night like I traditionally do if I'm not there, and have a few drinks and have some snacks, and really low-key because everything going on at the moment, you can't really have like many people around or do anything like that. So it's going to be far more low-key than normal, but I'm really excited still. Looking forward to it. So it doesn't sound very glamorous or exciting, but can't wait. It'll be
with the dogs as well. The dogs will be watching too.
They'll have no choice. Here's one there.
Luke, how about you? What's your plan for the race?
Yeah, probably the same. I think the missus, she must think I'm crazy. Although I think she started to watch a lot more now. But I know, if we ever watch it at home, she goes to bed and then gets back up in the morning. She's like, "You're still watching it." So I usually fall asleep a couple of hours during the night and then get woken up when there's a huge accident and the commentary team start shouting and what have I missed? So probably won't watch it all, but I'll watch into the early hours, have a sleep, wake up for the kind of early morning sunrise shots, and should be good.
Yeah, I think I'll be doing exactly the same. I think I've got some commentary on Sunday night, so I'm sure.
The PorscheSport Carrera Cup.
Of course, yes, that's exactly. Yeah, so I'm sure both. But the funny thing is that I'm sure Samil he'll be watching it all. He's my co-commentator for the PorscheSport Carrera Cup. He's just as much of a sports car nut as me, and the drivers. I'm sure a lot of the guys in the competition will be watching it as well. So everyone will be in the same boat. Everyone will be zombie tired, but it's always worth it for Le Mans. Well. Thanks so much to you all for listening and watching this live in sound and vision episode of the PorscheSport podcast. We have one very exciting special interview coming up for you. We shall keep that one under wraps till we've got it sorted. But we will let you know very soon about that. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on your chosen podcast provider. You can do that wherever you get your podcasts from, or also on our YouTube channel as well. But without further ado, enjoy Le Mans this week, and we will talk all about it, all the reaction next week on the PorscheSport podcast. Thanks for watching.
The PorscheSport podcast. For more information, visit www.PorscheSport.com.